What's up, guys? I'm DK, and you're watching Pro Wrestling What If, the series where I look at the different what if scenarios as terms of the world that we call professional wrestling. This weekend is WWE Backlash in France, and I thought I would do the same formula as what I did with WrestleMania the prior month. So, of course, today we're going to be going through the entire timeline of WWE Backlash and determining what the main event would be had it not been what it actually was in the real timeline. And of course, just like the WrestleMania series of shorts, I did the exact same thing with Backlash in determining what would happen if it was the opposite result for the main event. So kicking off with Backlash in 1999, the main event was The Rock versus Stone Cold Steve Austin for the WWE Championship with Shane McMahon as the special guest referee, which I think in this case would be The Undertaker versus Ken Shamrock. Now, I will want to mention to you in advance that a lot of these B-show pay-per-views just didn't really have enough options to where it could be the main event, and that you knew that one match in particular should have been the main event. But I believe at this time there was a storyline being developed of the Ministry of Darkness and the Corporation. We had seen it the month prior with WrestleMania 15, where Undertaker faced Big Boss Man in the Hell in a Cell match, where we saw this unfortunate moment. So I think due to storyline purposes that it would make sense for Undertaker versus Ken Shamrock to happen, and I believe if I'm not mistaken, Undertaker did end up winning this match, which I couldn't see Ken Shamrock winning this. Moving on to Backlash 2000, the main event was The Rock versus Triple H for the WWE Championship with Shane McMahon as the special guest referee, in which in this case it would have been Chris Jericho versus Chris Benoit for the Intercontinental Championship. Now, once again, just like I mentioned with 1999, there weren't really that many matches, especially for a B-show event, that would scream main event, and this would be the closest thing since we do have the second tier title of the Intercontinental Championship. And now this would have been weird to be the main event since I believe the match ended off in a disqualification. So ending off a pay-per-view on a DQ would have been ending off the pay-per-view on a sour note. For Backlash 2001, the main event was the Brothers of Destruction versus the two-man power trip in a winner-takes-all tag team match for the tag team, Intercontinental, and WWE Championships. But had it not been that, it would have been the Chris Benoit versus Kurt Angle 30-minute Ultimate Submission match. Now, the month prior to this, at WrestleMania 17, they put on a clinical of a match between each other, and I believe not only would they have this match, but they would still have about one or two more matches for pay-per-views after that, because Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit worked so well together that this definitely would be a great option as the main event, especially with the unique stipulation like a 30-minute Ultimate Submission match, with both men having a great background in technical wrestling. Plus, this match, because it was 30 minutes, was the longest match on the show, so it would have made sense time-wise to be the main event here also. For Backlash in 2002, the main event was Hollywood Hulk Hogan against Triple H for the undisputed WWE Championship, but had it not been this match, it would have been Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Undertaker in the number one's contender match with Ric Flair as the special guest referee. When you have two high-profile superstars like Stone Cold Steve Austin, who had been the face of WWE throughout the Attitude Era, and a standard bearer of WWE like The Undertaker clashing up together, that screams a main event had it not been Hollywood Hulk Hogan, who was the face of WWE, of course, during the 80s and early 90s, and the current champion Triple H. It definitely would have made sense. Plus, I guess if this was the main event, it would have continued the trend that 3 out of 4 Backlashes at this point had a special guest referee for some reason. For Backlash 2003, the main event was Goldberg versus The Rock, but had it not been that, it would have been John Cena versus Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship. And although Goldberg versus The Rock was the right call because you had a megastar from WCW against a megastar of WWE, of course, it would have been the world title main eventing this event. And especially at this time, I believe the World Heavyweight Championship wasn't defended because there was a 6-man tag team match, so you had to have the world title main event this event, which of course would have been with John Cena and Brock Lesnar, and of course we've seen babyface Brock Lesnar go over in this match, so the crowd would have went home happy seeing Brock Lesnar still be the WWE Champion. For Backlash 2004, the main event was the rematch from WrestleMania 20 with Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and Chris Benoit for the World Heavyweight Championship, but had it not been this match, I think it would have been the hardcore match for the Intercontinental Championship with Cactus Jack and Randy Orton. This match not only is probably in my top 10 favorite Backlash matches, but this is in my top 10 favorite matches period, out of any matches that have ever happened in pro wrestling. This match was so great and was the absolute match that made Randy Orton into the star that he is today. And I think it was because of that result of Mick Foley putting so much faith in putting over Randy Orton that made this match so excellent, because of course a hardcore match that is up the alley of Cactus Jack, a huge persona of Mick Foley, but having a guy like Randy Orton overcome the odds, especially because Evolution was banned from ringside, made it all that special, especially having the thumbtack spot in the match and then ending off the match, I believe, with Randy Orton hitting an RKO on the barbed wire bat. It was just so excellent, and it's a match that I definitely recommend, if you have not seen it yet, to go watch because it's so amazing. For Backlash 2005, the main event was Triple H versus Batista for the World Heavyweight Championship, but had it not been this match, it probably would have been Hulk Hogan and Shawn Michaels versus Muhammad Hassan and Daivari in a tag team match. Now, of course, in this case, I can't base it off of let's put the other world title in here, because I believe with this Backlash and the previous one that it was a Raw exclusive pay-per-view, because they were doing that shortly into 2003 at this point. So of course, when you have a megastar like Hulk Hogan, who was the face of WWE within the 80s and the early 90s, and a huge star like Shawn Michaels with top heels like Muhammad Hassan and Daivari, it definitely makes sense that had it not been the world title match, that this would have been the match that main evented, just because of Hulk Hogan himself. For Backlash 2006, the main event was Edge versus Triple H versus John Cena in a triple threat match for the WWE Championship, but had it not been this match, I think it would have been Rob Van Dam versus Shelton Benjamin in a winner-takes-all match for the Money in the Bank contract and Intercontinental Championship. Just the stipulation itself does sound like it's something that could be a main event. You have Rob Van Dam's newly won Money in the Bank briefcase that he won at WrestleMania 22 with Shelton Benjamin's Intercontinental Championship. And already both men put on great matches with the style of wrestling that they do. Of course, Shelton Benjamin being kind of like the highlight superstar of every Money in the Bank ladder match that he was involved with, especially with there only being two at the time. And I think at this point, he had made moments already with like climbing up the ladder and hitting the clothesline. And I think there was the spot, unless I'm thinking about a couple years later, of Shelton Benjamin falling off the ladder and bouncing off the top rope, doing a dive to the outside. Shelton Benjamin was a huge star in Money in the Bank, and having this kind of match with Rob Van Dam definitely would have screamed main event, especially because Rob Van Dam, who was already being propelled to main event status, I believe won this match and had the Intercontinental title and the Money in the Bank briefcase. For Backlash 2007, the main event was Shawn Michaels versus Edge versus Randy Orton versus John Cena in a fatal four-way match for the WWE Championship, but had it not been that match, it would have been Batista versus Undertaker in a last man standing match for the World Heavyweight Championship. Now, I think the reason this match wasn't the main event was because I believe it ended in a no contest. They were really protecting both of these superstars to where they could build up to another match, but with hindsight 2020, I believe Undertaker was dealing with injuries, which led to the angle of Mr. Kennedy originally, but later Edge cashing in Money in the Bank on Undertaker and winning the world title. So maybe there was supposed to be another pay-per-view match, but with that, they could have easily had the Undertaker win in this match, and it still wouldn't have hurt Batista. For Backlash 2008, the main event was another fatal four-way match, which had John Cena, Triple H, JBL, and Randy Orton for the WWE Championship, but had it not been that match, it would have been Edge versus Undertaker for the World Heavyweight Championship. Already, these men had a clinical main event match at WrestleMania 24. Why not have this match as the main event of Backlash 2008? And I think already Undertaker won this match via submission, which I think was the same way he won at WrestleMania 24. So I think they still would have put on as much of a great match here at Backlash as they did at WrestleMania 24. For Backlash 2009, the main event was Edge versus John Cena in a last man standing match for the World Heavyweight Championship, but had it not been that, unfortunately, it probably would have been the six-man tag team match for the WWE Championship with Legacy against Batista, Shane McMahon, and Triple H. This already was one of the most dumb ideas that WWE has ever came up with for any match. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the whole stipulation was it's a six-man tag team match for the WWE Championship, and I believe whoever pinned who first in this match would ultimately become the WWE Champion. So realistically, we could have potentially seen maybe Ted DiBiase Jr. pin Shane McMahon and become the new WWE Champion, but I believe ultimately, I think what ended up happening was Randy Orton pinning Triple H to become the new WWE Champion in this match. And we could have avoided this dumb idea had we went with the obvious idea of having Randy Orton, who had won the Royal Rumble, actually win his match against Triple H at WrestleMania, instead of having Triple H overcome the odds here year, and then having this stupid 6-man tag team match. I'm glad that that last man standing match ended up being the main event, because having a 6-man tag team match for the WWE Championship would have been a dumb idea for the main event. And then Backlash would end for a couple of years, and we won't see it until 2016, where the main event for this event would be AJ Styles versus Dean Ambrose for the WWE Championship. But had it not been this match, I think it would have been the 6-pack elimination match for the inaugural SmackDown Women's Championship with Becky Lynch, Naomi, Natalya, Nikki Bella, Carmella, and Alexa Bliss. I think this would have been a great way to main event an event like Backlash, where you're crowning the first championship, especially for the women's division. I mean, my other option would have been the inaugural SmackDown Tag Team title match, which was won by Heath Slater and Rhino, but this would have been a more crowning moment, especially seeing one of the 4 horsewomen in Becky Lynch having won this match. But ultimately, that WWE Championship match, seeing AJ Styles actually win the title for the first time, was a great moment to end off Backlash. But this women's title match would have been a great alternative to be the main event of Backlash. For Backlash 2017, the main event was Jinder Mahal versus Randy Orton for the WWE Championship, but had it not been that, I think it would have been AJ Styles versus Kevin Owens for the United States Championship. Now, I should mention at this point, because of the newer brand split, Backlash was a SmackDown exclusive pay-per-view, so we couldn't go with the other world title as the main event. And I don't remember which match this was for Kevin Owens and AJ Styles, because throughout 2017, they actually wrestled quite a bit for the US title. I think one match AJ Styles won, and then one match Kevin Owens won, and I believe there was one match where one won by DQ, so they really stretched out this feud a lot in 2017. And so I don't know what result it was, but if it was indeed the one where AJ Styles did win the title from Kevin Owens, then I think this would have been the logistical reason to make this as a main event, had it not been seeing that weird ending of Jinder Mahal, who was originally a jobber, all of a sudden overnight become the WWE Champion. For Backlash 2008, the main event was Roman Reigns versus Samoa Joe in just a regular one-on-one match, but had it not been that, it would have been the Shinsuke Nakamura versus AJ Styles no DQ match for the WWE Championship. Now, this once again was an AJ Styles feud that got stretched out longer than it should have. They had a really lackluster match at WrestleMania 34 that should have had Shinsuke Nakamura win the WWE Championship after winning the Royal Rumble, but I remember they had a no DQ match, they had a last man standing match, and then they had another match I believe they fought until SummerSlam that year. They stretched it out from that long because it is a world championship. That is the reason that it is the logistical main event in this case. Now we skip a year for Backlash, and it returns in 2020, where the main event is titled The Greatest Wrestling Match Ever between Edge and Randy Orton, and had it not been that, it probably would have been Bobby Lashley versus Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. Once again, it makes sense for the world title to be the main event of even a B-show pay-per-view, but I think at this point, as terms of the Universal title, Braun Strowman was feuding with Bray Wyatt, where you did the whole thing of one event it was Firefly Funhouse Bray Wyatt, which I think was this case. Then you had Swamp House Bray Wyatt at a next pay-per-view, until ultimately losing it to The Fiend Bray Wyatt at SummerSlam. So I think it was that case, or maybe in this case, this actually was the event now as I'm thinking about it, where Braun Strowman defended it in a 2-on-1 handicap match against Miz and John Morrison. So that was a great idea for that not being the main event, so it would make sense for Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre to be the main event. For Backlash 2021, or in this case, it would be called WrestleMania Backlash, the main event was Cesaro versus Roman Reigns for the Universal Championship, but had it not been that, it probably would have been the triple threat match with Braun Strowman, Drew McIntyre, and Bobby Lashley for the WWE Championship. This goes along the idea of what I mentioned earlier about if it's not one world title, it would have been the other world title. Of course, the Universal title main evented because Roman Reigns is the face of the company, and he would automatically get that main event spot. But had it not been the Universal title, it would have been the WWE Championship realistically that main evented the show. And I think all three of these competitors were awesome to see face each other, especially because I believe this was the last pay-per-view Braun Strowman competed in before initially being released by WWE. For WrestleMania Backlash in 2022, the main event was Drew McIntyre and RK Bro against the Bloodline in a 6-man tag team match, but had it not been that, it probably would have been the I Quit match for the SmackDown Women's Championship between Ronda Rousey and Charlotte Flair. So of course at this point, Roman Reigns is the undisputed WWE Universal Champion, champion. So there is only one world champion at this point. So had it not been Roman Reigns, which I believe, little fact check, this was the last pay-per-view Roman competed in as a full-time competitor, that it would have been a huge stipulation match, like an I Quit match for the SmackDown Women's title match, that would have main evented, which seen Ronda Rousey actually win the championship, even though I felt like she should have won the title realistically at WrestleMania 38 the month prior. And last but not least, we have Backlash 2023. Thank God they went back to the Backlash name instead of WrestleMania Backlash. The main event was Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar, but had it not been that match, it should have been Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest in the San Juan street fight. Now, this is a match that was just absolutely amazing between both of these competitors, especially one being a celebrity competitor that barely competes in WWE. Now, I think this is the reason why Damian Priest ended up being booked to win Money in the Bank, was because of how excellent this match was and how well he was able to carry Bad Bunny into this match. And especially Bad Bunny being from Puerto Rico, this would have been a huge hometown ovation to where this could have been the main event. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think this was the longest match on the card. So realistically, based off of time reasons, like I mentioned with the Kurt Angle and Benoit match from 2001, that this could have been the main event because it was the longest match. But that's going to be the end of this edition of Pro Wrestling What If. And if you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this to all your friends and press the notification bell for when future episodes release. Leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know what you think the main events of Backlash would have been had it not been what it actually was in the real timeline. And I hope to see you guys on another edition of Pro Wrestling What If.